Americans, 1.38 million cases. Worldwide, at least 4.18 million and 286,000 deaths. But we don't really know what to compare. I wish journalists listening right now stop saying America leads the world. We have no idea what's going on in China. They lie. We have no idea what's going on in Iran. They lie. And we have no idea of what's going on in places like Ecuador because they don't have the ability to count. And so just stop with that. All we know is what the Western Europe and the American numbers are. I'm joined by Jake Sherman of Politico. Good morning, Jake. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Hugh. How are you?
Good. I want to talk about phase four, but first I want to talk to you about Obamagate. Yesterday, Philip Rucker, your friend and mine, asked the president a question. This is what happened, cut number 16.
Phil?
Mr. President, in one of your Mother's Day tweets, you appear to accuse President Obama of the biggest political crime in American history by far. Those were your words. What crime exactly are you accusing President Obama of committing, and do you believe the Justice Department should prosecute him?
Obamagate. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on from before I even got elected, and it's a disgrace that it happened. And if you look at what's gone on, and if you look at now all of this information that's being released, and from what I understand, that's only the beginning. Some terrible things happened, and it should never be allowed to happen in our country again. And you'll be seeing what's going on over the coming weeks. But I wish you'd write honestly about it, but unfortunately, you choose not to do so. Yeah, John, please.
Crime. What is the crime exactly that you're accusing him of?
You know what the crime is. The crime is very obvious to everybody. All you have to do is read the newspapers, except yours. John, please.
So, Jake Sherman, I know what Obamagate is. I'm curious whether you have a definition of it.
Well, I hate to. I think we might disagree here, Hugh. I don't know exactly what he's talking about. I assume what he's talking about is what he sees as the Obama administration's complicitness, again, in his view of what he would call spying against his campaign and setting up his campaign and people in his orbit. That would be what I would assume he's talking about. But I guess it would be helpful if he would say what he believes it is and whether he believes someone should be prosecuted.
Well, I think it is the intentional interference with the peaceful, seamless, cooperative transfer of power between presidential administrations. Now, that interference may or may not be criminal. Bill Barr, in his interview with CBS, said, "We won't know for a while if it's criminal." But it was certainly destructive of the Republic's greatest political tradition. It's not been seen in any serious fashion since 1861. And I must tell you, when I read the Sally Yates interview with the special counsel, where she was in the January 5 meeting with President Obama and had no idea that Comey had sent the Bureau's people over to trap Flynn, at that point, Jake Sherman, the scales have got to come off of everybody's eyes. It's the Sally Yates statement that just says, what? They didn't tell the Department of Justice they were interviewing Flynn? And she was herself self-described flabbergasted. That's what Obamagate is.
Well, I will say that in my experience, usually higher ups at the Justice Department know of things like that, and I only know that because I've dealt with criminal investigations of members of Congress in the past, where the senior leadership of the Department of Justice generally does know when a member of Congress is being interviewed or being about to be indicted. I knew that in the case of Aaron Schock, that Eric Holder at the time, I believe, was aware of those interviews in that process. So I will say, just on that narrow point, it does seem that the senior leadership of the Department of Justice generally does know about something of that nature.
Yeah, Comey and Strzok and the gang and McCabe ran an end run around the DOJ in order to get Flynn. And Andy McCarthy's view is it's to remove Flynn because Flynn would have figured out the dicey stuff they had been doing through the fall, and it certainly did impact the administration. That's Obamagate. So I don't think there's any doubt that people know what Obamagate is. Now, the next question is, why ask? I mean, what is going on with the press corps in the Rose Garden, Jake? Yesterday, John Roberts asked a very important question about the new manifestation of the virus among children, although there are only 85 cases. Every parent I know's eyebrow went up when they hear about that. That's very scary. But we get all these questions, which are, to me, gotcha questions. What is wrong with the press corps?
Like what, for example?
The end question. Well, what is Obamagate is the first one, but then let's go to cut number.
That's not a that's not a. I don't think that's a gotcha question. I think that's a totally fair question. The president chose to talk about that. He sent something like, I don't know. He sent a number of tweets on that. So it's not crazy. It's not unusual to ask a question about something the president has chose to talk about. We didn't make the president talk about that. He decided
It wasn't
to
the
talk about
original
that.
question. It was the follow-up. And the president said, you know what it is. And Philip Rucker did not respond. He said, what is it again? And that's where I thought he was being contentious. But I'll give you another one. This is Weijie Zhang at the end of the question, cut number 13.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if every day Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Okay, stop
Well,
for a
they're
second.
losing.
So, Jake, why is this a global competition to you? Is that a good, legitimate question in your view?
Well, I mean, the larger question to me would be, why is this? I mean, we're not leading the world in testing.
No, but she said that why is this? Her question is, why is this a global competition? Is that legit?
I don't. It wouldn't be the question that I would ask. That doesn't mean.
No, of course not. It's an absurd, it's a stupid question. He's never said it's a global competition. He is using the metrics that everybody else uses, and they're bad metrics because we don't know what's going on in China and Iran, but she's out to get his dander, and he ended up closing off the press conference. I just think, you got the John Carls and the John Roberts and the Steve Hollands who are there doing their business, doing a good job. And then you got a bunch of people who are there to get the president's dander up and cause a scene and make themselves some money. And I think the whole country's tuned into it. Now, Jake, tell me about where are we on the Hill? Is there going to be a phase 4 in May?
Yeah, I think that there is going to be a phase 4. I don't think it's going to be in May. The White House, according to my reporting, sees between 6 and 8 weeks from now another stimulus package. They're under internal pressure, and they want to see how the money they've laid out already works and how it's working, and if it's effective. The Democrats, of course, are going to put out their bill in the next couple days here, and they're going to do a large stimulus bill that's mostly a member management / a messaging document, as John Cornyn or John Thune put it yesterday, although I believe they would both agree with that.
Oh, I missed that.
With that
I missed
statement.
that.
Yeah, so I think that I do think there'll be another stimulus of some sort. I don't believe it'll be anytime soon.
As I look at it, the states desperately in need of money. So the Democrats and they're mostly blue states. There are some red states that need it, but I mean, Illinois had to borrow $12 billion from the Treasury, and California $900 million, and Connecticut $1.1 billion, and that's just the first week. So they're going to have to bail out the states. The Republicans will get tort reform. I think they'll get protection for state businesses and employers from COVID cases, and I also think they'll get defense spending. What do the Republicans want out of this, Jake Sherman?
Well, that's the number one thing they want is some liability protections, which I think is going to be a tough sell for a lot of them. They're also going to want to wall off the money that they give to states. They're going to want to wall it off from this general revenue replacement, which is what Democrats have wanted to do. They're going to want to make sure that it's COVID-related, that the states are spending on COVID-related funding, and I think that's the prerogative of a lot of Republicans.
Why do you think it's a big lift to get tort reform?
I just think the Democrats are going to resist that, and they've already signaled that they're going to resist it. Chuck Schumer signaled he's going to resist it. I don't know. You never know how these things shake out, right? You never know how these negotiations shake out and who gets what and where things end up. I just think that they're going to need a lot to give that up, and I think that Chuck Schumer has already said you're asking, or I'm not sure if it's Chuck Schumer, but one Democratic leader has already said you're going to put people at risk, and you're going to want to protect the employers who put them at risk. And I think that that's going to be a tough row for a lot of Democrats.
If they don't give on that, there's not going to be a phase 4. The Republican Party will rise up and smote down every Republican if they do not get tort reform. They might not get phase 4. They'll accept that the Democrats weren't willing to give it. But if they cave on that, they're done. They'll lose the Senate. They'll lose the House. If they allow the plaintiffs' bar to pick over the bones of Americans' business after the Chinese poisoned us, the Chinese Communist Party poisoned us. That'll be it. And so I just think you can put it in playbook. There ain't going to be a deal without tort reform. Not going to happen. Jake Sherman, always a pleasure. Follow him at Politico. Get the Politico Playbook in the morning and